I was going to ask you what your response was to all the riots this summer. I mean, could you ever imagine that it would be like this in our nation?
No, you know, it reminded me when Jesus experienced racism in Luke 9:51, and the disciples were mad because of the Samaritans wouldn't let them cut through a neighborhood.
Yeah.
And they said, you want us to call down fire and just destroy this whole village? You know, you want us to release a Molotov cocktail from heaven and just nuke this place?
Yeah.
And Jesus said something that was so profound. He said, the Son of Man didn't come to destroy man's lives, but to save them. But before he said that, he said this: you don't know what spirit you're speaking from. And I think a lot of people right now, we don't know what spirit we're speaking from. And the anger of man will never achieve the righteousness of God. The anger of man is not going to bring the healing of racism. The anger of man is not going to bring about the ending of abortion. The anger of man is not going to bring about the ending of human trafficking. The anger of man would never achieve the righteousness of God. But righteousness and justice, like Bishop said, are the foundation for God's throne. For those leaders who are willing to walk in that, they're going to be the ones that God's going to release healing through.
So anger is not the answer. So what is the answer?
It's love. It's forgiveness. And it's one relationship at a time. I think the enemy is trying to put us all back into categories now and say that all white people are racist and all black people are perpetual victims. Well, that's not the truth. And so the accuser is on his job of accusing and categorizing, when this thing is going to be healed one relationship at a time.
And so what about the radical gap? I mean, there's a huge gap right now.
So that's kind of birthed out of my conversations with Bishop Jackson and a few others, and they basically said this, you know, if you want to draw a crowd right now, all you have to do is draw a line. Because we're so polarized right now. And you have people on the one side that are radical left. They think they're radical because everybody thinks like them, likes their stuff, reposts their stuff.
If you don't think like them, they may censor you.
They censor you, though. Then you get the people on the radical right, you know, far extremes. And all they do is just lob categories at each other. They never take time to understand each other individually. And so they think, these folks think they're radical. They're not radical, because the real radical place, I believe,
Is the middle.
Is in the middle.
Well, not necessarily in the middle. It's in the gap. It's that distance between where God says He wants us to be and where we are.
So it's a balance.
In a sense, it is a balance.
Balanced.
But it's understanding the complexity and the nuance of where we are right now. And it's like somebody draws a Venn diagram in the spirit and says, okay, there's some principles and precepts from this side that align with God's kingdom, and some from this side that align with God's kingdom. And they're holding on to each. These other folks are trying to tear the fabric of the nation apart. The people in the radical gap are holding on to both sides because they love people on both sides. And they're willing to deal with the nuance and the complexity. And they help people being understanding and break the power of the labels that we place on each other. So Ezekiel 22:30, he says, I'm looking for somebody to stand in the gap.